Hi, everybody.
Are we live?
We're live.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
We're so glad y'all could. It's been a minute since we've done a live, like a
Yeah,
week
and today we filmed episode 3, our second episode with guests.
with guests. Are we making the announcement
I
now?
don't do it. Should we? I don't know.
All
Maybe
right,
we'll
maybe.
throw some hints out. And but these are like you're gonna love these guests. We have the one from the like a major player in the trial, and then we'll have kind of a feel good guest after that, like we did with Dr. Kinsey, and then with Stephanie Truesdale in episode 2. And so if I highly recommend, if you have not listened to that episode, please go back and listen to it, because Dr. Kinsey was amazing, and Stephanie with her crocheted dolls of the characters of the trial, she was so sweet.
They were really great guests. I'm so glad that we got to chat with them and that people could hear from them, because they were both so kind and just um, it's not always for two lawyers who are chatting. We get to have conversations with people who are just both so genuine and kind. And thank you, Brittany. Brittany saying that she loved episode 2. Thank you,
Thank
Brittany.
you, Brittany.
I think you're gonna love episode 3 too.
Yes,
We've
yes,
got some really cool cats.
yeah, especially if
That
you like cats. I think it's like Tiger King. Well,
right?
it is. But
I
yeah,
think it's going to be great. So hopefully, that will drop soon, because we were planning on doing a drop like every Wednesday, but it just seems like we can't contain. We don't want to wait that long to
right.
to
That's
talk to
too long to
everybody.
wait.
It's too long. So,
So,
um, yeah.
so we have questions coming in that we are happy to address to the extent that we know the answers. And you want
We
to
will
jump
tell
right?
you if we don't know. Like
Yeah,
that,
we will.
listen, lawyers don't know everything about the law, and if they say they know everything about the law, then they're liars.
Right, right.
So we
Yeah,
will
but I
answer
think
to the best of our abilities for
yeah.
sure.
So this first one that I saw from earlier in the day is from Paige, and she says, I think he's guilty, but I also thought that with his deep drug connections, he could have very easily hired someone or multiple people to come do it, which would explain a lot. And so Paige, I would refer you to Dr. Kinsey's interview in episode 2, because we asked him that same question. How did you know it wasn't 2 shooters? How did you know that, using 2
It
guns?
wasn't a professional hit, right?
Right. I think he used the term, it was disorganized. A professional hit would have cut the time in half or more. It was a chaotic scene. And he
Right.
used the term, I think this was amateur night. This was, somebody
Exactly.
who didn't quite know what they were doing. So, he amazed me when we talked to him, how it was almost like he has this telepathic thing where he can look at a crime scene and visualize what happened and
What's
how
going
it
on?
happened. I think that's a unique gift. I don't think every crime scene investigator has that.
I agree. I think that there are certain things that you can be trained on. I
Mhm.
tell especially lawyers that do victims' rights work, or who work with victims. I can teach you the law, but you can't teach that innate passion and heart for people. You just can't
Right.
do that. And I think that that's something that is so clearly just evident when you're talking with Dr. Kinsey, that he is made to do this job. What
He
he does, he's just created to do that. And you can see that he is passionate about it. How he talked about being a voice for victims, which is obviously warms my victims' rights lawyer's heart. And you can just see that that he was meant to do what he does. And he's
mhm.
so good at it. And
And
so
even beyond his passion, I think his passion matches with a sixth sense that he seems to have about what has happened. Because we saw other experts up there who opined, but Dr. Kinsey, he really,
it was different. It was different.
it was
Yeah.
different. He saw that, like he knew. He wasn't guessing as to what happened.
Right.
The one part where he says, really? When I
It's a
think
cone. It was like
it's a cone.
it was it's it was so great. Um wow, we've got people. Let's see, California, Colorado. Hey y'all, we're so glad y'all joined us.
Thank you so much.
So we don't have Zeke here with us tonight. So if you see us looking down or we're scrolling, we're trying to get to questions because we've gotten questions on YouTube and questions on Twitter. So please make them keep coming. We want to try to get to as many as we can. So we've got a question here. What happens now that he's filed an appeal? As of today, August 14th is date for the Satterfield case, question mark. Um, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I
What
think
are our expectations?
what are our expectations? Well, I think that Judge Newman has mentioned that he's the judge for the 99 financial crimes. So
Right?
I think that those happen maybe in relative short order. I've been sort of vocal about how he shouldn't get to keep jumping the line in front of other defendants and victims who want justice, because there are a lot of people in our state. I mean, if you walk into my little prosecutor's office in the Sixth Circuit, I've got files stacked high on every surface in the room. And, and I want to get these people justice as quickly as possible, but the wheels seem to be turning faster for Alec than they do for a lot of other defendants. So I don't know how quickly they get to those other cases, but with Judge Newman retiring, probably coming back as retired active,
Right.
may be tasked with just dealing with the
Dealing with
99
those
financial crimes that Alec has pretty much admitted to anyway. He may demand a trial for every one of them, but
Well, someone asked me that on Twitter, I think it was yesterday, about, I mean, is he just going to plead guilty to this? And my answer was,
field
I
trip.
mean, he gets out of prison. So, I mean, if I were Alec, and I've said a million times, like, we cannot think like Alec Murdaugh. We just can't put our own brains and our own, glass lenses on with that. But he gets out. He gets to talk with his lawyers. He gets to go to Hampton County, Orangeburg County, Colleton County, all of these different places for trials.
Field
That-
trips.
So, I mean, I think at some point, um, I'm very curious to see at what point the Attorney General's office is going to say, or are they going to say, okay, well, we're just not, we're going to do, the Satterfield case coming up, hopefully in the fall. We've got some others, but are we going to go through all of
And
these cases?
every one of those victims deserves justice.
They do, absolutely, absolutely.
And I felt like when Creighton Waters went through in the trial all of the names of the victims, people said, he spent a lot of time on the financial crimes, but he was giving those victims some piece of
Right.
justice in court.
Acknowledgement, like, we see you, we hear you, and we are right, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see what happens. I can't imagine that he's going to plead guilty. I would sure as hell make y'all prove me guilty if I were him. I would, I would do that. Um, but I mean, we also, I don't know what's going on in his mind. So I guess we'll just see. We'll see what
we
happens.
don't think like him. That's something that we've all kind of
very grateful we don't, thankfully.
And so, yeah, but the appeal, they have until what, the 19th to file the notice of appeal.
I think it's the 13th, but has it been filed as of yet?
Oh, I don't
I've
know.
been in all-day training, so sorry, y'all, I haven't been on Twitter. I haven't caught up with my news today,
and it's
so
really
apologies.
It's a formality, the notice of.
Right, the notice is just, we're going to do this.
It's not going to be like a big deal when it is filed. You can bet that it will be. And so, and it'll take a little while.
Yes, absolutely. It's not something that's going to happen in short order. So
yeah.
For those of y'all that are, sitting on the edge of your seat waiting to read that, this notice of appeal is not going to have anything groundbreaking in it.
You can get on with other things and wait for, that notice of appeal is not, it's going to be anticlimactic.
Yes. Yep. And I think we've got some that it was filed as of today. So,
good.
Good. Thank y'all. See, we do have real.
I was not.
Sorry, y'all.
Yeah.
So, Krista Evans, right? What do you think about the public accusations that have been made against or accusing Buster of being involved in Stephen Smith's death? Well, we've been very vocal about
I
this.
have strong feelings
I
about it.
am, I am a victim's advocate and a victim's lawyer through and through. And certainly I want justice for Stephen Smith and his family.
Right.
But I'm also very careful that, rumors, speculation, conjecture are not things that rule in the legal system. We have to have evidence. And if there is evidence, then I think that I hope and pray and believe that the state will move forward with that. But I haven't seen anything, and from what I've heard from talking with people, that's perhaps not where they're going down the wrong path there. People that are making that speculation.
Yeah, and Sandy Smith is such a wonderful, like, just the picture of a phenomenal mother. And I strive to be the kind of mother like that she is, because she adores her children and will fight for them. And she's fighting for justice for Stephen. And gosh, I hope she gets answers and that she gets justice. In as to this murder trial, Buster is a victim, period, period. And it has been very frustrating and upsetting to see him just presumed to be a murderer without even being charged with anything. And it's when he has lost his mother and his brother and has like learned horrible things about his father, I can't imagine the trauma that he's experiencing. And I think we've been beating this drum since the beginning, when people started coming out and really just vilifying Buster as he sat there in the courtroom and accusing him of all sorts of things that they apparently don't have any real evidence of, or they would go to law enforcement. And if they do, I hope that they do go to law enforcement.
Absolutely.
Sandy Smith deserves justice.
No doubt about that. And I think that over the past, week or so since the trial ended, seeing pictures of Buster in his home, through the blinds, and people essentially stalking and harassing him as he goes about his daily life as a private citizen, is just really
Right.
it's
It's
just
awful.
awful. It really, really is. It's just disgusting.
And if you're, I put this on Twitter the other day, if you're not going to have a sense of decency, at least be aware of defamation laws.
Right?
Because you can't just go out half-cocked accusing somebody of a crime, and certainly not murder, without evidence of it. And so if you can't hold yourself back, for the sake of decency, hold yourself back for the sake of yourself, because there are defamation laws.
Just a lot of times
I'm worked up. So I like that question. Give us a chance to answer it again.
we're going to take a deep breath. It's been a day.
Yeah.
We saw everybody.
So I've got one here. A lot of people today, it seems like today has been the day of, let's talk about Alec being a jailhouse lawyer. Is he gonna be like sitting in the prison library, drafting motions, drafting appeals for other people, and that kind of thing, since he's a trained lawyer? What do you think, Sarah?
I'm sus about that whole thing. No, I don't think so. But I mean, maybe I'm wrong. No, I don't imagine that. I don't think that he's going to be, making buddies and here, let me write your motions for you. I don't think that that's going to happen. You know, I don't foresee that, but I mean, I suppose he could. I mean, he might be able, he might be able to get some honey buns out of it for doing, writing motions and things.
You
But
know,
he also wasn't that kind of lawyer either.
that's
So
right. He's primarily a plaintiff's lawyer. And, I think that just from what I've seen in terms of like the jailhouse lawyers, these are the inmates who just kind of trained themselves. They never went to law school. They just kind of sit there and they read the law. They've gotten really good. I mean, I have
some of the motions I've read, I'm like, Damn. All
I
right.
know.
Like, go
I've
ahead, y'all.
seen inmates argue when they represent themselves in court, and I am just really impressed at some of the logical, cogent, um, grounded in case law arguments that these inmates are making. I don't think they're sitting there waiting for this great savior to come in and start writing their motions for them, because they're doing a decent job as it is with the jailhouse lawyers they have.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna be
I don't either.
his uh his prison job. I don't
No.
know. Maybe he'll be, I don't know, handing out food. Maybe he'll be, yeah, I don't know what he's gonna be doing, but I don't think that's gonna be it. And plus he's probably gonna be busy with these 99 other cases. And I hate
Right.
that every time I say 99, I'm like, is 99 bottles of beer on that? Like it's just it literally
Oh,
99. It's
I'm
just
just
so
99
crazy.
problems, but you know that song? It's
99 problems, chain one.
that's what I think about, but
We have
yeah.
to be careful because I think we said this is a clean
Right,
episode.
right.
Sorry, y'all. Maybe we should say like this is for 18. Then it makes it weird.
No, we're
Anyway,
fine. We're
we're
fine.
good. Sorry, y'all. It's a good song.
But
Um,
song.
so Disney Nerd 85, thank y'all for y'all's insight and honesty from West Virginia. Hey, West Virginia. Love some
Thank
West
you for
Virginia.
joining us. I've got
And Maureen is taking on the job of Zeke. Like and subscribe, folks. Share your support. Thank you, Maureen.
you more.
It's
Subscribe.
um
So I've got Tara or Frances Tara McTee here, and
okay.
she had said earlier on our Twitter that the trial made her think she'd be a good lawyer and made her sad for herself that she didn't apply to law school because she says she's a speech pathologist and they make peanuts compared to lawyers. And so I think you and I were kind of like, don't judge our salaries based on
Please
what
don't.
Alec was making. I mean, what even like what he was making legitimately was really, really on the top end of
Yes.
what a lawyer a lot
Without his bonus. Without his bonus.
right with
Um,
his steps and
I think I wrote back to her because I'm a nonprofit lawyer. We're entirely funded with grants. I write grants. Yeah. And I'm very blessed that I absolutely love the work that I do. I can't imagine doing anything other than being a lawyer and being the type of lawyer that I am. But I certainly don't do it because because I'm making any money. I think I would probably be making more money being a teacher if I'd stuck with teaching eighth grade than I do now. But let me tell you, my job satisfaction, the work that I get to do, the people I get to meet and support and help, um, I wouldn't change a damn thing.
yeah.
So
And on my end, I'm practicing with my husband, small town that I grew up in, and working as a contract prosecutor for the solicitor's office just a block up the street. And there's so much autonomy with that it's kind of like a give and take. If I worked all the time, I would make a lot more money than I make, but it's something that I really value, having control over my own schedule and being able to go kayaking in the middle of the day if I want to do that, and my schedule can permit it. So it is a wonderful profession for just life satisfaction and autonomy. It can be a very, very stressful one too, though.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. But I always tell people when people say, I wish I went to law school or I could be a lawyer or I love it. They're like, I'm so good at arguing. I could be a lawyer. And I
Don't, if
tell,
you want to argue,
don't
please.
judge on that. I promise y'all. But I
Yeah.
always say, if you could envision yourself doing anything other than being a lawyer, go do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not easy. I mean,
That's
I
very
always look at being a lawyer as people come to lawyers to solve problems they can't solve on their own.
mhm.
And to me, that is a huge blessing and it is a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
And if that's not something that you're willing to put your life, you know, just give everything for, then I would go do something else. Like if
You know,
I could cut hair or do hair, I would totally be doing that. But this is it for me. So,
and I love
and I
that
love it.
she's a speech pathologist, so she's giving people something that,
What an
probably
incredible gift.
children Yeah, the confidence that comes with going through that speech therapy, I think that is a beautiful, wonderful thing.
Absolutely, for sure. Um,
You got one?
I'm trying to read. I'm not good at scrolling
Okay.
and drinking my diet ginger ale. I promise this is diet ginger ale, y'all.
Well, it's okay if it's
Let's
not.
see. It would be okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So let's see. Um, all right. Curious on thoughts, Leah Baker, thoughts on Randy's New York Times article. I love how like the New York Times just like comes out with these really appropriately timed articles on the Murdoch family.
Well, they're paying attention, and but I I'm Pollyanna over here. I am just always I was took me a long time to accept the fact that Alec had lied to me and to everybody in his life. But I read it and I thought that's awesome. That took a lot of courage. That took just I never would have imagined that he would do it because they're so private. It's not that I never would have imagined that
But
he
they were on the Today Show like very soon after this. Like,
ostensibly to ask for help to find the killers. I mean, that's the reason they were on the Today Show in June of 21, John Marvin and Randy, because they thought there were killers on the loose. I do believe that they thought that at the time, and I think that perhaps one or both of them thinks that now, but to see Randy in the New York Times saying Alec knows more than he's saying, Alec lied to me, I have not spoken to him
like a
in
year.
a
Yeah.
year. That was big to air that. I mean, it's not big that it is the truth, but it was really big, I think, that he told the world about it. And I know he's saving himself and blah, 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 but I think that
I mean,
it
he's also got a practice. He's got, a firm and all of that. So it certainly makes sense to try to distance himself as much as possible from that. But I do think you're right. I think overall they've been
private.
relatively private.
Yeah.
Um, so,
Too. And also,
um,
he wouldn't have said it if he didn't believe it. He wouldn't have said Alec is still lying if he didn't believe he was still lying. The fact that he believes it, I think, that's a big deal. To
yeah.
use Andy Matney's term, it's a big deal. Y'all, I know y'all are already watching or listening to her podcast. She's amazing.
Yes, they are, and it's a big deal. All right. So, what else do we have here? Okay. Honey buns. Yes, honey buns are currency in prison.
Oh yeah. And everything from the canteen is currency
Everything is.
in prison.
Um, all
You know,
right. How do family from Natalie, I think, how do families of accused process a conviction? Natalie, there are so many different thoughts, emotions, feelings, all of the things that victims' families go through. I think it's a little bit different in this case because there's not a line between the victim's family and the defendant's family. They are all one family, so that makes it really difficult. I think that traditionally, um, in a case where there's not that familial connection, I think a lot of times victims, their families, survivors of homicide in particular, often have this expectation that a trial and a conviction are going to give them some closure. And I always try to prepare my clients that closure is, if we're looking to the justice system to give closure to victims, I don't think that's ever going to come. I certainly don't want to ever take hope from a family, but very rarely will a conviction close that chapter. It may give a little bit of solace in the heartache that they've been dealing with and feeling like they've gotten justice. Um, but that closure will never come. We've talked about, especially with civil litigation, that we say that, well, we want to make the victim whole again. There is absolutely nothing our system, criminal system, civil system can ever do to satisfy the hole that's left in these survivors'
Things
lives.
back the way they
Um,
used to be, but
Never.
the goal is to approach that in the civil side. It's to approach that, and in the criminal side, it's justice.
And it really, it's I look at the civil system that really works in tandem with our criminal system. So often people say, someone files, civil lawsuit for wrongful death or for negligence or whatever. I always look at the civil system as an accountability tool for the
Yeah.
system, because so often, because of lawsuits, policies and procedures and things have changed for the better for other people who may have experiences, whether it's you know negligence at a hospital or safety in a car accident. Those things also make a big difference, and so often it's about accountability. Um,
And that is
but
social
it
justice.
is social justice in a way. It's we think about it. I know as lawyers we think about it differently than most people do, but um, it's hard to process. It really
Yeah.
is, and there's no right way, wrong way, easy way.
Mhm.
It's a lifelong thing.
When people, like, when we get them money for some broken part of themselves, and then they're like, well, that money is not taxed. Why is it not taxed? And it's like, well, if that's there to replace, say, your arm is not taxed, and the fact that you're getting this money judgment or this settlement to replace that broken part of you, the we're recognizing as a government that that is what that is for. They cannot give you your arm back or your leg back or whatever part of you, if it is an external body part or an emotional body part. They can't give it back to you. All they can do is give you a money judgment to replace that. And it is there to go in its place. It's not income. It's nothing new. It's nothing added to your life. And you would probably never trade places with someone who has had that happen to them. And so that's I think that's an important thing to consider, especially as we look at, what the actions of a bad lawyer have done to our profession in terms of the way that we're viewed.
Absolutely. So true. So true. I'm gonna stop there because Lord knows I could just keep on going talking about that. But thank you for that question. I think that was a really great question. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about that.
So
Um,
I
what you
have
got?
I have one here. This is from earlier today on Twitter. Ruest Natalie, it says, I don't understand why he wouldn't agree to a settlement and make payments instead of risking having his finances exposed, especially if he had money hidden. He could use that for settlement payments. And so, I mean, my thought on that is that's a lot of presumptions in
Yeah.
there. And so I'd like to unpack them. One is
Unpack away.
the notion he had money hidden, which I've long said I don't think he's not the type. People
Maybe
who
he has a buried suitcase somewhere. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe
I
not.
swear he does not, because if you're saving for a rainy day, what rainier day can there
Well,
be?
that's true. I mean, but also, I mean, I don't think this is like Ozark where like the money is like in the walls. When that in that
No,
Ozark where it was like I don't
yeah.
think that that's the case either.
And I
But
learned from Ozark, you got to wrap it in plastic
because
because the
you don't
bugs.
want the rats to get it or the bugs. Exactly. You can learn so
But
much.
yeah, I don't think he was doing any of that Ozark stuff. He wasn't trying to pay taxes on his stolen money. There's no evidence that he was doing that. He wasn't laundering, and because that's what laundering is. It's trying to make stolen money look legit. I don't think he was worried about that. I don't think he was thinking that far ahead. I don't think he had that kind of self-control to launder or hide. But that's just my assessment of his personality. But I think if he had it, he would have gotten it. And then the notion of why he didn't agree to make payments with Mark Tinsley, I don't think Mark Tinsley had offered to a payment plan because he was still trying to assess what the what
What the
the
value, right?
what the value of his estate was, because typically when I file like a lawsuit against somebody, most people, at least in our area, are what we call judgment proof. So whatever insurance they have, that pretty much covers all the assets that I could get if I got a judgment against them personally. So their insurance will, it will probably usually max out. And then that's that. And you don't go and attach their house or their car or their golf cart or their Budweiser clock or whatever it is they have. They're covered by their insurance.
Budweiser
But,
clock. I like that.
but yeah, that's
But dot dot dot.
that. Alec was an unusual defendant in a civil suit
In so
because
many ways. In so
he
many
had run
ways.
out of insurance because he had used the entire 4 million on the Satterfield case, settling that. So he didn't have any insurance left for his homeowners at that point. And he had very little in, like, I think umbrella or whatever, but it wouldn't be enough. And Mark Tinsley had to look at what his assets were. And he hadn't gotten an answer to that yet. Is that how you saw it?
I think I mostly agree with you here. I think that um I know I keep saying this, but I think it's very difficult for us to look at this through rational eyes and think, where did this money go? Where is this? Why is he doing this? Why didn't he do this? Where did this go? Why did,
Mhm.
I think it's really difficult for us to think about it that way. And I know that's hard because we want to have answers to all the things. We want things to make sense,
Mm,
but we also have to understand that sometimes we don't have all the answers. We're never going to have all the answers. Um, and it's hard to to rationalize that. But I don't think it's particularly helpful. My opinion is it's not particularly helpful for us to continue to speculate on things that we really I don't, a lot of
right.
these things I don't know. We can talk about them, we can speculate, but is that really helpful here? I don't think that it
This is
is.
not
But
speculation.
I understand the questions behind it though.
Right. We know that Mark Tinsley didn't have a picture of Alec's finances, period. So he couldn't agree to accept an amount of money because he didn't know what Alec
He
had.
didn't have the entire picture of it, which
Right.
was
Alec could
obviously by
be
design.
sitting on a mountain of 50 million saying, all I have is 2 million. Will you take it? And Mark's like, no, I want to see what you're sitting on. You
Right.
know, he's
If you've got 100, then two is not going to work. Right.
right.
But if
I'm not going to tell you what, what's in the suitcase I'm sitting on, but I'll tell you it's not $50 million. Here you go. Will you take this? And, Mark was demanding to see everything. So like, we know that for sure, that he did not have a clear picture of Alec's finances and wasn't going to agree to anything until he did.
um yes, okay, Michael, I'm curious how far back in time cellular carriers can show data. I used to work for Verizon way back, and we could pull tower reports back in the mid 2000s. Um, so
That
I Go ahead. You go ahead.
No, no, no. I have that same question. Like, I want to ask it back to him. You tell me how far back they can go. I want to know about the what is it, geocaching? How far back they can
Geofencing, yes, is it
think. Yeah,
geofencing?
yeah. Geocaching is like a hide and seek thing, but geofencing, like how far back the geofencing warrants can go, because it is stunning to me that the notion that you could tell me what cell signals were within,
Pinging here, pinging
right,
like
a half a mile of my house on some date back in January. That's between some period of time. I think that is possible. Is that on yours?
I think it's possible. Now, I've done subpoenas and search warrants for things before, and don't come for me, Verizon, T-Mobile, any of them, but notoriously difficult to work with
Mm-hmm.
when you're trying to get this information, or they'll claim that they don't have information after, I don't know, 30 days or 6 months or whatever the thing is.
Kind of like a
Um,
star.
kind of
And
like OnStar, but then it's like, whoa, OnStar wasn't cooperative, GM wasn't cooperative, and oh, the hills, that
that's its thing, and suddenly OnStar.
here it is. Let me give you all this data that we've said we didn't have, and it's like,
You,
we knew you had, like, which
my
makes me
husband
think you
said,
guys have this stuff. You better bring it for all these other cases because we know
exactly.
you can
My
do it.
husband was like, Alec is gonna be like recruited to do ads for Ford because he'll be like, Chevys be snitching, you know,
To be snitching.
Chevys be because OnStar snitched on him. That was, I'm sure Ford probably has something like that, but yeah,
Yeah.
Chevys be snitching.
Well, I mean, I'm grateful for their snitching in this case for
Me
sure.
too. But what I would love to know is, did they have a geofencing warrant for Alameda for that night, the area around there?
Right.
Because my understanding is it's like so far out, there wouldn't be too many cell signals bouncing around. And I may have a totally wrong understanding about how it works. But if they did, they would be able to, I would think, tell if he was using a burner phone, because Shelley Smith said that he was on the phone the whole time that he was with his mom, but his actual phone showed no activity while he was in there visiting with his mom. So it made me wonder. A lot of people on Twitter have also speculated he was on a burner phone, maybe communicating with someone. Would a geofencing warrant be able to find that? And how far back can they go? Maybe we need this Mark who just asked this question to answer that.
Michael, we may call on you to join us later.
Michael.
Mike, I think it was Michael.
I'm sorry,
Um,
your name, Michael.
um, I don't know, but these are good questions because I don't know the answer to this. I wish I did. Don't know the answer,
Maybe
but
they did get that and they're saving it, because you remember Chief Keel said after in his press conference, he's like, if you helped him, like after the fact, we're coming for you. It felt like that was a press conference intended
felt
for
like it was like, I'm
very,
watching you. We have a message. Like this is a message to you folks.
and I felt like he knew who he was talking to too. It seemed so specific.
I guess time will tell. We will see. We will
That
see
would
what
be
happens.
fascinating.
Let's see. Um, will we cover the case, the lawyer turned councilman who's charged with killing a journalist in Vegas going to represent himself? Um, we
I
hadn't
don't
really talked about it. I don't know anything about the case yet, but thank you, Nomad. And sorry, y'all, I don't have my glasses on. I need to put my glasses on.
I
So I can
don't
do
have a
the
really good sense of, since the Alec Murdoch stuff happened in our backyard, if these other things, the cases that people are asking us about are, well, Alec Murdoch was like, that was a really big deal, not just here, I think. And is it a bigger deal than these other cases that are happening now? Like there's
well,
the
you got
people,
like the Idaho four, the Coburger, is it Coburger in Idaho,
yeah, that's,
where the four
yeah.
college students were just brutally murdered. I think that's certainly getting a lot of
And it has some very bizarre,
very
I think,
strange case, that one.
facts. Yeah. And
Um,
thank God, I think technology is what got him too, right?
mhm.
My
it's uh,
goodness.
it's so strange like where we've come in. I mean, even since I've been practicing law, like just in 15, 20 years, just the difference that technology has made in prosecuting cases. It's
Right. It's not the
it's
blood and the DNA anymore, which are very, very fragile pieces of evidence, as we saw in this.
right.
The technology lasts.
It's yeah, it really is.
Mhm.
Um, let's see. Is it
They're putting,
Ari? Hi folks, neighbor up here in North Carolina. Hey
hey.
neighbor. Thanks for all you do. Well, thank you. We are both very blessed to do what we do and then get to jump on here and talk with y'all. We're glad to do it.
Yes.
Can we speak to how the Alec Murdaugh trial was so quick? How did he get to quote jump the line? I saw that the 14th Circuit is backed up.
Hmm.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, he jumped the line.
He
And
jumped.
it's partly because, his lawyers filed a motion for speedy trial and they really pushed.
But
And
a lot of lawyers file motions for speedy trials that don't
right.
go that fast. So
But then, Creighton Waters was like, okay, we're ready.
we're ready.
It's a I've gotten so many cases settled when, at roll call, when I'm like, ready to go, Your Honor, whether I was ready to go or not. And then the other side's like, oh crap, like
Let's
maybe,
work this out. Is the
yeah.
plea still on the table? Yeah.
Yes.
That's so true.
Well, no, that was when I was doing civil, in my personal injury stuff. I'm like, ready to go. And so yeah, but
Uh, all right. Brittany, thoughts on Dick and Jim potentially going back? Y'all, I just took my glasses off when I'm trying to read this. I'm
Mhm.
not very bright to know. Okay. Thoughts on Dick and Jim potentially going back in front of Newman for financial crimes after saying they don't feel Alex got a fair murder trial. Ooh.
Hmm.
Well,
I
I
mean,
think that Judge Newman is a great judge.
he's so classy. He's not going to, violate the canons of judicial ethics to like exact any kind of you know, frustration or anger at them for anything that they've said. They're representing their client. They're a part of the
Right.
system of justice, and he understands that.
I
And
mean, judges have pretty much heard it all, like,
yeah, he
uh,
understands that.
from everybody. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
I guess we'll see where that continues to go. All right, what you got, Mandy?
Um, I one thing that, along those lines is the sort of the vitriol that was directed at Alec's lawyers. I think everybody in his periphery, his lawyers, I think had just seen a lot of comments about that. And I think it's important to remember that they are a part of the system, that they were fulfilling a very important role in the justice system. And if you like the result, then be glad for good lawyering on the defense, because when appeals are granted, very often they're granted on the basis of ineffective assistance of counsel. So you would not have wanted them to be ineffective for him. And so I think that his defense team was quite effective. And I mean, they did everything they could possibly do. And I am sure I would have been tempted, and I've said many times, just to run out the back door after he testified. Like, what do you have left that you can say or argue or present when your own client is up there digging himself the biggest hole and then jumping in it? And so they came back and worked hard for him after he testified. And just my hat is off to them for fulfilling their role professionally in the arena in which they were. And so
It's a hell of a job being a defense attorney. Like, it
somebody
really
likes you
is.
when you're a defense lawyer.
I mean, it's
A client likes you. Not
right.
always, right?
No, it's so true. When I was first out of law school, I was a public defender and absolutely loved being a public defender. Just
Mhm.
a fantastic job, where you're in the courtroom trying cases in court all the time. Um, but I remember from one of our frequent flyer defendants in the First Circuit, when I went over to the solicitor's office, um, he came up to me during we have appearances, making sure that people are showing up to court and all of that. And he came up to me, he said, "Miss Ford, can I talk to you for a second?" I said, "Sure." He said, "I just want to tell you, congratulations, you finally graduated from law school." And now you can be a real lawyer as a solicitor. And it's so crazy because so often people think that defense or public defenders especially are like, not real lawyers, or always like
Mhm.
public offenders and stuff. It's a tough job
Oh
to
my
be
God.
up against, basically everyone day in and day out. Half the time your client is not forthcoming with you, which makes your job 1,000 times more difficult. and you're trying to protect the rights of your client, um, it is a tough job. And it's something that, you know, like Dick and Jim personally or not, that doesn't really have anything to do with it. I can tell you there were a lot of things that Dick said that I was like, what the hell? But I think that, as a lawyer, as a defense lawyer, he had a job to do. And um, I think that if we didn't have people like Dick and Jim on the other side there, we'd have a major problem. And we can't have that. We've got to have people doing that job.
Right.
So whether it's personality or not, hey, you've got to protect the client's rights. You've got to protect the defendant as best you can and
I
do
did
the best you can with what you got.
one murder trial on the defense side and lost. But most of the time you do lose when you're in criminal defense. And that's another thing. You've got to have this like personality that is okay with people not liking you, is okay with losing more than you win. And that I learned that I was very much not cut out for that. That was an appointed case. I didn't advertise my services as a criminal defense lawyer, never have. But when you have indigents and there's a conflict of interest with public defenders, they'll appoint a local lawyer to do it, and I was on the team for it. And I don't know if I've told this story on here before, but I have told it in other places. I was coming out of the bathroom, and the mother of the victim was in the doorway. I didn't expect to see her because I was defending the person accused of killing her son. And she wrapped me in her arms and pulled me tight to her. And she whispered in my ear, "You do the best you can for that young man, because I don't want anything coming back on appeal because you missed something."
Right.
She understood that I was a part of the legal process, even though I was defending the person that she believed killed her son. And I appreciated that so much. It wasn't enough to keep me wanting to do defense work, but
You were hooked, were you?
yeah, she was so gracious and so graceful in that moment. And I carried that with me since.
It's true. It's so true. Let's see. Um, thank you, Roan Tide. Don't forget to like and subscribe, support. Thank you so much. We appreciate it,
That's
y'all.
reminding people of
Um,
that.
so we have been putting our lives on our pod. So now we're like 7 days in as podcasters. Is that what we are? Um, and like we said, we've just recorded our third episode tonight. We've been putting our lives on as bonus content in case
Oh,
people
our live recordings.
are
I was
live.
I didn't sign up to put my life on there. So
Live. Lord have mercy, y'all. It has been a day. It's been a
I
day.
was like, where are you leading me,
What are
Sarah?
you talking about, Sarah?
Like putting my life on this, but
No,
no.
we are not. No, we are not putting no. But we appreciate y'all wherever you're getting your podcast, subscribing and liking those, and it's it's been an interesting couple of weeks because it's been such a blessing for us because we we've never met in person. Obviously, we're gonna have to meet very soon in person, and we're gonna have to probably do a live so people can meet in real life. But doing this has been really because we've been able to talk about what the law is. We don't really have a dog. We haven't had a dog in the fight, but making sure that people have access to good information
Mhm.
and information that matters, South Carolina law, what that looks like, how we can interpret that. Um, it's really been, we appreciate y'all joining us because sometimes people are like, lawyers are the most boring people ever. Oh my gosh.
And you know
But
what? I want to propose that we do something since, for the people who have stayed, who have watched our live, can we tell them who our guests are for episode 3?
yeah, well, see, I wanted to tell earlier, but you're right. I'm glad we stayed for the people that were here. Yes.
Yeah.
So, so Mark Tinsley is going to be on our third episode. We're really excited. I think you guys are really going to like hearing from him. He is incredibly bright, incredibly
Phenomenal.
dedicated.
He is
Um,
every bit the tiger that Judge Newman said that he was in sentencing. And I mean, what an awesome thing to be called, in a separate trial, and
oh
is
yeah.
called out as just a great lawyer. and he's such a great advocate for the Beach family. And the other guest, you probably won't know him by name, but you'll know who we're talking about. His name is Dr. Wendell Butterfield. And Dr. Butterfield is an 80-year-old ex-Marine who was recruited to provide security for Judge Newman, who is 72, right? And the court staff. And he sat, you would see him behind Alec's left shoulder, and he wore the most
amazing
fashionable outfits that his wife picked out for him. So you'll get to hear him tell the story about how he met his wife and about his experiences in the trial. And he's so delightful, y'all.
He was, and y'all, I mean, okay, I'm not going to spoil it, but it was really cute. So, yeah, I'm very excited. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh my gosh. Can't wait for episode. Well, you should have seen us earlier today. I was like, oh my gosh, is my computer working? Like, let's make sure that everything's good. So we are really excited. We hope that we will be able to get that dropped. Hopefully well, before Monday is our goal for sure. So make sure that you tune in for that. And we're pumped about that. And it will be here on YouTube and of course, anywhere that you get your podcasts. So we got a few more minutes. We normally do an hour. Let's answer a couple more questions. So if y'all have any burning questions, please, please, please.
I've been going on the Twitter ones, so I don't.
Are you on the Twitter? Okay, I'm trying to I gotta go on I always call it the YouTube. Like, I feel like that makes me like
questions on the YouTube now.
On the YouTube. I'm on the YouTube. I feel like that makes me sound like I'm 80 years old, but that's okay. Okay, the conservative, what is cousin Eddie's alibi? You know what? We might try to get his lawyer on here. Amy Zimmercheck, maybe she'll come talk to us. So we'll see what we can do there.
I'd love to get some
talk about
into him. I think he knows stuff that would cause us to reassess what we know. And that would be, I mean, not that I think we're going to get that from him, but I think that it's there. I think there is really interesting information that he knows.
I mean, we'll see what happens there.
So Debbie says, can't wait to hear Tinsley. Please ask him, does Alex have life insurance or no life insurance? We ask him that.
Don't you worry. We got you on that.
We got you, Debbie. And so, yeah, we talked about that a lot. Strong beliefs on that. And
okay, so here we go. Okay, oh gosh, I just missed it. Okay, so I thought I just saw it, but maybe I didn't. So there's been a lot of stuff on Twitter about Dick Harpootlian addressing the Senate, where he had said that he was going to keep things after after the trial. They had their press conference and said, not going to, my role as a lawyer and my role as a senator are two different things. And then went on some things on.
I think he saw that consistent with his statement, because in the Senate, they have point of personal privilege. We never had that in the House. Like, you couldn't just go to the well and just talk about what was going on in your life. You can make an announcement like, hey, I had a baby. Here's a picture of my baby. But then you had to go. In the Senate, they can, speak for a while about what's going on.
Apparently.
Yeah, and they often do. And I think that was like, people saw that who don't normally watch Senate proceedings and were kind of like, what's going on here? How does he get to, give commentary and all that? But it's really common in the Senate to exercise that and just to speak about things. And so I think in his stated reason for that was that he wanted to let people know that, he was a part of the system of justice and not taking on the persona of his client. For good or bad. I mean, it's not.
He's got a way with words, doesn't he?
But it is allowed in the Senate.
It is. It's kind of like sometimes, I'm just gonna look down my nose on my glasses, and I'm just gonna keep on
The
here.
officer who was next to Mr. Butterfield, who was like his facial expressions during sentencing when he was like, "Yeah, that's right, that's right." It was just very much like Mr. Butterfield was like a statue
He
throughout the
was.
trial, but the officer who in uniform he had some facial expressions on that. He's like, you could just almost hear him as he expressed himself. That was interesting.
Um. Okay, so let's take one last question
Okay.
here. Um. So if all right, Christian Shepherd, if he was to win the appeal, do you think
Mhm.
the state will retry him or just let the financial crimes take over?
Uh,
First of all, let's break this down.
Yeah,
What are the chances of him winning the appeal? What do you think?
I don't think they're very high at all. Judge Newman had his rulings, in my opinion, were spot on. And the only thing would be the 404 evidence, possibly, but I think that I thought it was very clear that, and you know, this is a Supreme Court that oversees lawyers and lawyer conduct, and he has embarrassed our profession. So, I mean, I don't think that's it would be impossible not to have that somewhere in the back of your mind when you're assessing his case. I mean, I think it would just be impossible. So, but I don't think that they even have to worry about that entering the front of their minds, because I don't think there's any issue that would cause them to order a new trial.
I think so too, and I think in the places that Judge Newman was cautious, I think the defense very clearly opened the door to allowing these things in. So I don't think, even if it was at the beginning, it was like, is he going to let the 404B stuff? There were things that came out from the defense opening that door, that like opening. I mean, what are you supposed to do at that point?
Really
Um,
good.
so I think that, um, I think that that's
Because
the
originally
law is settled. I just don't think that it's going to be successful.
he said that the financial, no, not the financial crimes evidence, the roadside shooting,
Right.
no testimony.
No, and then
It's a bridge too
that door came
far.
open.
And then he said, and you paved a road right
You
over
paved a road up for it.
there.
I loved his sayings, right? He had such great sayings. Um, no, I don't think that's going to happen. But I think even if say it was granted, a new trial was granted, which is not necessarily the first thing that's not like, there's an issue. The court says, okay, we agree that there's an issue. They could likely say it was just harmless error.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean a new trial is going to be granted. But if it were, I can't imagine that the state would not retry it. I mean, I think that they would. Um, so
And
there
so
you go. For what
I
it's
want
worth.
one more, because Blue Jays has said, what about one of the jurors being related to one of the officers who was on the list?
I
And
have been on this horse
yeah, what
on
do you,
Twitter.
I haven't
Hmm.
gotten on that horse. So what have you been saying on it?
So number one, small communities have small jury pools.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. Um,
Everybody's related to everybody.
I mean, I will tell you a story. I was a prosecutor. I called a case. We were qualifying a jury. Six people stood up. They knew me. One man gets up and says, I've seen her sing in a tire store. And the whole jury pool was like, what? That lady, the lawyer, sings in a tire store? Well, yeah, I mean, I was in a band. But I mean, is that going to say because you've hung out in a tire store and heard? I mean, everybody's connected. The
Mhm.
difference here is it was a brother. And what I think happened, it was the absolute right thing to happen. They took him in chambers with the defense and the prosecution. They discussed it. And guess what? They didn't strike him for cause. They could have asked for that. They did not make that motion. And then they could have struck him as a peremptory challenge, and they didn't do that.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, we got a lot of Monday morning quarterbacks here. We got a lot of hindsight is 2020, but
You
they
can't,
had opportunities they didn't take.
you have to have finality. It's like with elections. The law favors finality. You don't
Right.
go back and say, oh, well, this juror shouldn't have been in the jury pool. That's done. That's over. The time for bringing that up
It's
passed
over.
when the jury was selected. So they can't come back now and say, you know what, we've thought about it and we want to undo this and then redo everything. So,
And you know,
um,
as a lawyer, our jobs, so much of being a prosecutor especially is you're trying the case in a way so that you don't have to try this case again. So you want these things to be preserved on the record, and this was not preserved.
right,
They could have made motions about this at the time, but that wasn't the case at all.
right.
And because they failed to do that, they chose to move forward.
Mhm.
I mean, I think we have a lot of people that are not particularly familiar with our legal system that are taking this and think, oh my gosh. But they interviewed this gentleman. They talked to him in chambers.
I
Both
appreciate
sides
the
had the
question,
opportunity.
Blue Jays, because that is something that is coming up a lot that we're seeing on Twitter about this. And it's a and I don't want to like talk myself into this notion that that could be a grounds for ineffective assistance of counsel, but there are many decisions that defense counsel makes throughout a trial, many split second decisions and many strategy decisions that could later be said, oh, they were ineffective for me, therefore I want a new trial. But they have to be so ineffective that they caused you to be found guilty. That, I mean,
Right.
your lawyer could be just drunk and asleep at the table, but if it's clear that you're guilty, you're not going to win on an ineffective
Right.
assistance.
The standard is not, it's adequate is the standard.
Yeah.
And this person was connected, his brother was in law enforcement. I think that it could have been a judgment call on behalf of the defense. Like, we think this person is gonna, be more in favor of our position. So, we can always look back. I mean, I could look at every case, every hearing, every motion I've ever done and think, "Ah, I should have said this or I should have done that, or but
And
it's
I do
also
that.
called
I
I
sit
definitely do. I mean,
and like relive everything afterwards.
but it's also the practice of law, and I think that we do the best that we can as we're moving forward, and sometimes things are a strategic decision that don't work out in your favor. Sometimes you make a strategic decision and it works out. So,
Thank y'all
um
so much. We're past 9 now,
we are
and
past that.
we want to thank you so much for being with us and for asking your great questions.
So episode 3 is coming out shortly. It'll be here on YouTube and on podcasts. Um, thank y'all for joining us, and we hope to stay connected with y'all on Twitter and Instagram and on social media. Um, we appreciate y'all,
Thank you.
and we're glad to talk with y'all. So everybody have a great rest of your night, and we'll talk to y'all soon.
Bye. Have a great weekend.
Bye, y'all.